So I'm here with Amy Waddle, and she's a professional speaker, writer, and eating disorder recovery advocate for dancers. And she's the founder of Dancing with ED, or founder of Dancing with Eating Disorders. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you do with this Dancing with Eating Disorders. What is that?
Dancing with Ed, I call it Ed. I apologize to anyone named Ed. In the treatment community, eating disorder treatment community, they will shorten eating disorder to Ed. And for so many years within my eating disorder, within the struggle, it really became like this other entity, which I named my Ed because I knew I had an eating disorder. So there's a story behind where Dancing with Ed came from. It was, I was sitting actually in a counseling session, and we'll get to the part in the interview where I'll tell you about my injury, but the doctor told me that I was never going to dance again after that spinal injury. And he's like, "You're done. That's it." And I told my therapist, I said, "You know what? I think that doctor was wrong. Like, I never stopped dancing. I was just dancing with Ed. Because my eating disorder had taken over my life in a way that dance sort of was my focus. And then the eating disorder was like, it's all good. I'm here. You can focus on this."
Yeah.
For those years I was dancing with Ed. And then when I became an entrepreneur, which, by the way, I didn't sign up for. Like, I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I just started these businesses because I was like, hey, you know what I want to do? I want to help people. So let's start a nonprofit. So I did that called Dancing with Ed. That'll be its name. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to speak and stuff. I want to help people. So look, that's another business I'm going to have to start. So I started another business. And then someone's like, oh, wow, it's so nice to meet an entrepreneur. And I'm like, is that what that is? Yeah. Okay. Entrepreneur.
It's kind of a fun sounding word.
Yeah. People entrepreneur sounds like a really big word, right? I hear entrepreneur and I think, well, you must make $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's not true.
This is a free-flowing interview. I got these questions in mind, but
yes.
Since you brought up the injury,
yeah,
what happened?
I started dancing when I was 12. It was a little older for starting classical ballet training. And I loved ballet. I was really good at it, just technically and with the artistry that went along with that. And I advanced quickly. So I went from dancing at a local recreational studio 1 year later to a classical ballet school in the town closest to where we lived. And then 2 years later, I'm moving away from home to study pre-professional classical ballet. So not only was I very good at it, but my training went really quickly. And it was extremely physically demanding. We were dancing 6-7 hours a day, 6 days a week. And that was when we weren't in a show. We didn't go to school all day, don't get me wrong. We only went to school till noon because, we were in a performing arts school. We lived there. We had a dorm. I didn't have to live with my parents. It was awesome. Yeah, 14 moving away from home. I had my own checkbook. I could buy my own cereal, whatever I wanted. Awesome. I loved it. I'm so happy. But that training was so hard on my body. And I really think that my body was still growing. And when the injury occurred, I was so sort of disconnected from my body's signals that I probably had been in pain for a while and I just was ignoring it. Because after a show, I woke up the next day and I couldn't move. I was in excruciating pain. And I remember Petra Spasman, who was my my teacher, who from the Royal Ballet, he said, get her to the best orthopedic surgeon, figure out what's wrong, and get her back on the dance floor. And the doctor, did the MRI and said, you have degenerative disc disease and arthritis, 3 herniated discs in your lower spine. So you have lumbar 3, 4, and 5 completely herniated, which is basically squished. And you have the spine of a 40-year-old. And I was 17.
Sure.
So he's like, that's it. Career over, gone.
Is that it for you?
They said that was it. So of course, me being the stubborn, determined woman, I refused to quit. So I kept dancing as much as I could. I went into physical therapy. I went home for the summer, got into physical therapy. I remember Patris wrote on my report card, let's get this back thing cleared up. No one was acknowledging the reality of the situation. In the dance world, injuries are like normal.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, you broke your ankle or you have a stress fracture. Well, we'll just heal up and we'll see you, when you get back.
Yeah.
So we weren't thinking that this was really career ending. We're probably thinking, oh, what does that doctor know, right? I'm a ballet dancer. I don't stop. And I danced on that for another 6 months until I literally couldn't lift my leg off the ground.
Jeez.
And my parents had to come down there and say, you're coming home. And the people at the dance school were furious.
Yeah.
Because I was I was a star at the time. I was their star.
Oh, man.
So
man.
we invested in her. You can't take her, make her quit. And my parents are like, this is our daughter. And there's a large conflict there between choosing to continue to push my body and go home and be a normal kid and heal.
I gotcha. I didn't realize that there was that additional social pressure from being in the boarding school and having a star. Yeah. I wrote down, how did your traumatic injury lead to a eating disorder? But when you spoke earlier, just a few minutes ago, it kind of sounded like, in retrospect, you had an eating disorder while you were dancing. So and you're nodding your head, yes. Okay. So the traumatic injury,
yeah,
it brought cognizance that you had an eating disorder, or perhaps that awareness of an eating disorder that happened later on. How did you become aware that you had an eating disorder?
It's interesting, the perspective or the knowledge, the awareness, I guess I'd use that word, that something was wrong, something wasn't healthy, came in my late teen years when there was a big transition in my life. I graduated from high school. I had to kind of pick what I was going to do, where I was going to move, who I was going to live with. My dad was living in the city to work, and my mom was moving off to a beach condo, and I had to figure out, do I want to go to college? And at the time, I was severely depressed. I had already been through suicidal ideation and just hating myself because I was angry at my body. I thought my body wasn't good enough. My body wasn't strong enough. If my body was better, I would have made it and I wouldn't be in this situation. So I turned a lot of that anger inward. So at the time, that's where I was battling that. I can't take this pain, so I'm going to control something. And that's when I figured, I embraced this. If you just stay thin, if you just keep your dancer body, then you'll have everything you have as a dancer. And I had no identity outside of being a dancer. So when I lost dance, I really completely lost myself.
Yeah.
And so the eating disorders are really like an iceberg.
Uh-huh.
A whole bunch of stuff under the surface. So I had all that under the surface stuff there already, but the very tip was I started to restrict.
Yeah, you had lost, I mean, the tip of the iceberg, you had lost your community, you'd lost your friends at a developmental age where you're trying to find yourself and who you are and identity
And the physical pain. I was in severe physical pain. I had to wear a brace. It went from the bottom of my ribs here to my whole torso was basically twisted. And I had these big Velcro straps on the front, and I had to wear that for 6 months. And you never go, well, let's be honest, high school kids are really nice. They're so nice to each other. So of course,
that's sarcasm.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Nice, right?
I was gonna say that's way worse than braces.
They wouldn't like it was literally my middle of my body didn't move.
Yeah, I remember being embarrassed when I had braces, and that's way less obvious.
Like knock on it,
Oh my God.
They used to call me Ace of Brace because back then Ace of Base was a really cool band.
Oh.
Remember? Yeah, maybe you're too young, but anyway, that was my nickname. I'm awesome, but not in high school, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really hard to keep it hidden. And everyone's like, what are you doing back home? Are you the ballet girl? What are you going to do now? Why don't you just dance? It was a tough transition. A lot of things were going on at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, yeah, the way you related to your body, you probably got some of that from your environment at ballet. I remember when I wrestled, it was normal that your body would hurt, and it was, okay, time to cut weight, time to restrict, time to stop eating. You'll be fine next few days. Just don't eat anything. It was just so normalized. I think some of those messages and how we relate to our bodies, it becomes, we learn it from our environment, and or a lot of the times we learn it from our environment.
Right.
And sounds like you picked up some of those messages and then started when everything was out of control. Yeah.
Everything.
So later on in your career, you sounded like you got into like some sort of healing, from massage therapy to I believe you were working with some other different populations. How did that start?
I was looking for something to be.
Yeah.
And I still had a heart for dancers, though I refused to go back to dance and even try because it was too emotionally painful. And injuries, helping people with injuries, helping with people who are suffering from physical pain and injuries. And I had, at the time, massage schools were just getting started. And I thought I would love to do body work on athletes that are injured and do like sports massage. And it was, I loved sports massage. I loved working with people, runners, and all different types of athletes, and doing that work and helping them and for them to heal. But what I didn't realize was that I was continuing to run from my own healing. I could help other people, but down deep, I had not been healing. I was not moving. I was stagnant.
You were drawn to it. You kind of knew intellectually, injuries, bodies, athletes. I'm drawn to that. That relates to me, but you weren't doing your own work. It was something that you're drawn to, but not like, it wasn't a calling, I guess, or something like that. How did you start to discover? How did you start doing your own work if it wasn't through massage?
I got tired of rubbing people.
I know, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, like leaning your weight into someone, and you got to
hurt my wrist actually,
around, like it's a lot of work. Like
it is. I was working too much. I think one summer I was doing 8 hours a day. And it was seasonal. So
Okay.
you've got to get your work in the summer when everyone's at the resort. So, but I hurt my wrist. And in some ways, I think that was a trigger. Doing something I love.
Like it reminded, yeah.
So I started working, just finding anything I could do, like waiting tables or being a secretary. You know, in the area I lived, it was a coastal community. You know, they called it slower, lower Delaware. That's where I lived. And I was super sick in my eating disorder. A lot of emotional pain, a lot of restriction, a lot of just being obsessed with, you know, whatever is inside of me. It was almost like it was completely taking over my mind. And I remember writing in my journal in November of 2001, I'm scared of this thing. And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out. And it was almost like I'm an abuse victim saying I'm trapped and I don't know how to get out of this.
Yeah.
So one afternoon at work, I have been abusing diet pills. And the kind that are bad for you, like really bad for you.
Yeah, they're
like they shouldn't be for sale.
Like they're they're basically, I don't know what you were using, but I've heard other people, they tell it's basically crack. It's like it just speeds you up way too much and it's just not good.
Not eating and not drinking anything but coffee and liquor. And smoking, you know, it's just super healthy stuff, right? And I collapsed at work. Just in the bathroom, I just completely collapsed. And they brought me to the emergency room. And that was when I kind of got the whole, you have to make a choice. The doctor said, if you keep going like you're going, you're going to die. You almost had a heart attack today. I was 24 years old. And he was giving me the life or death. You need to pick. And I remember being angry. Like, those are my like two choices. Like, can I live like half and half? Can I be dead on the inside and alive on the outside like I always been?
Yeah.
Bad. In fact, that it was almost like he was taking my power away. And nobody knew at the time that I had an undiagnosed mood disorder. This whole entire time, I had an undiagnosed severe mood disorder that was intermingled with the bulimia. That's what was causing the suicidality and a lot of the emotional pain and working together. But by the time, you know, I didn't leave that hospital that day without a plan. I remember looking over at my best friend. She was holding my hand and she looked right into my eyes. And that's when I was like, I'm okay. I'm going to face this. So I went into 3 months intensive eating disorder treatment. I was officially diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder and bulimia. And I started what people call recovery, whatever that thing was, right?
Yeah, that messy.
What I was in for, really. A year later, I relapsed hard, and got back up. And I did that for 10 years. Working as a front office medical check-in person. Just
Amen.
Nothing, no mission-driven Amy yet. No passion yet. No recovery vision Amy. It was just, I'm staying alive. And that was really all that I knew inside my head, to just stay alive. There's a monster inside me that is going to try to kill me through suicide if I don't do what they say. So I did that till about 2012.
That is the work. I admire that. That's when you said I found that interesting. Just wanted to explore what you said a little bit. When you first found out you had an eating disorder, you were angry and you felt it was taking away your power. And then that day you had looked your friend in the eye and said, okay, I'm gonna join a eating or the 3-month program. how'd you resolve that? How'd you resolve that? I find that people have a very hard time making decisions when they feel like they're losing power, that they need to feel like they have some say in the matter. But kind of this was, I guess, life or death, obviously the ultimatum. But any words of wisdom you can shine into your like kind of process around resolving that?
There's one aspect of recovery that it really is the only thing that keeps you going, and it's the only thing that I was clinging to, and that's hope. Within the messy, scary dialogue going on in my head of I don't want to live anymore, I'm not good enough, this storm.
Yeah.
This little piece of hope. It was almost like a candle that you had blown out, but it was still like it was still kind of still burning.
Interesting.
It was so small, but I was somehow able to connect with that tiny little piece of hope.
Huh.
Because if I didn't have that, I would have quit.
Yeah.
I would have quit. So what suicide prevention is, what eating disorder prevention is hope. It's the only thing strong enough to keep someone alive. Not a treatment program, not learning to eat better. It's hope, and there's ways to give people hope. And now the work I do is revolves around a lot of that. But at the time, this Amy didn't exist.
Wow.
In 2008, 9, 2010, I was super, super, like, you wouldn't have recognized me. I was on so many antipsychotic medications just to keep me from killing myself. And I would go in and out of the psych hospital. I remember one afternoon I was really suicidal, and I knew that if I went home from work, I'd kill myself. So I told my coworker, and she was like, well, you want me to drive you to the hospital? And I said, yeah, because I wanted to live, but my brain was telling me otherwise. So I really had to dig in my heels and be like, no, stop, brain.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. But with the brain disease, bipolar disorder, it tricks you.
Yeah.
So here I am, I go into the hospital that afternoon and they put a gown on me, right? So I'm wearing a gown over my business casual. And it was such a representation of my life at the time. Here I'm a psych patient and a children's specialist at a domestic violence shelter. So I'm doing this crisis work and I'm in crisis. And
yeah.
We were drawn together somehow.
I remember my teacher when I was in counseling school, she said, a lot of people find themselves in counseling school because they were, I forget the exact words she used, but it was something like they were the glue holding their family together. They were the fixers in their childhood relationships. They were the givers. They were the self-sacrificers, and so forth. And that pattern of just giving kind of keeps on going.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I definitely feel that. And what about hope? That's a fascinating. You mentioned. Oh, so the image I had in my head when you described the candle. So before you said the candle, I was thinking like the eye of a hurricane, but I didn't. After you said the candle, I think the candle is better because the eye of the hurricane. You mentioned the storm. There's like a little bit of lightness, and I immediately thought of a hurricane. I was like, but the eye of a hurricane is there's something centering about that. The candle is so faint, and I like that image. I feel that more like it just blown out. There's just that little ember, barely alive. What about hope? Yeah, what about hope? So you mentioned specifically that there were ways a person could increase hope or however you want to sustain hope or nourish hope.
Right.
Well, yeah. How do you do that?
sustaining hope and staying connected to having, hope and purpose. It's difficult when you've been through either some really traumatic events in your life. It could be childhood trauma. It could be, you have a mental health condition, depression, anxiety, and those, that emotional and mental pain that come with trauma and mental health conditions disconnect us from what we really need to sustain life, which is human connection. We all are either believe that we're created or evolved to want to belong and to connect and have purpose. And so that damage, it like just blows out our candle. Like, well, then why am I here? And nothing's meeting that need. If this is never gonna end, then why? And that's the question that hopelessness fuels suicidality and the wanting to control and the depression and the behavior that we use to cope. Hopelessness is what we're fighting when we talk about suicide prevention.
Yeah.
And it's hope that we need to give each other. This was all, I just discovered all of this in the last 3
Oh yeah, it's
it's like totally new to me. I realized it.
I love it.
And now I'm just like, hey everyone, this is some good stuff. I've got to share it.
So kind of building off that analogy with the candle, like the wax is human connection, maybe?
Yes. And I'm the fire. So
Yeah.
and it's interesting analogy because once you discover like what really happened in the past, what happened, you get the answers. It's almost like I only really figured it out when I started writing a book about my life, about my experience, my eating disorder. And like the editor said, after reading my first couple chapters, I don't know, there's something missing. I think you need to go deeper. And I'm like, what?
Huh.
Really gone deep. I have all these journal entries and all these realizations. I'm like, okay, maybe he sees something I don't. And I started interviewing my family.
Oh.
And starting to ask them, well, why did I do this? And why would I react that way? And who was I at the time? And I started to get a completely different picture of who I thought I was. This whole entire time, eating disorder recovery, I thought all it was is about losing dance and having that body image struggle and that pain, when really I had sexual trauma from when I was a child.
Oh.
That I had no connection to. I had completely out.
Wow.
So when you have trauma like that, specifically with the body, you disconnect from your body.
Yeah.
And that made me prone to injury.
Yeah.
I was trying to destroy my body, be as thin as possible, and no one can hurt you. I didn't know that level was even there, that depth, that foundation underneath my story. I didn't even know it was there until I really started to dig back into my past. And then everything made sense. How I reacted to losing dance is because I had to move back home and be in that environment again. So there's a triple layer. Now there's 3 layers there now. I'm thinking, I was just bummed because I had to leave my friends, which I was, but I'm also being put back in an unpredictable situation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that fuels, the trauma fueled the eating disorder.
Yeah. And it's fuel underneath the surface. So
it's like rock bottom basement.
Rock bottom basement?
Yeah, like rock bottom has a basement.
Oh.
When you hit rock bottom?
Yeah. Oh, below it. You're even below it.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. it's really deep down there. And you know, I don't recommend it really. I really don't. If you're going to write a memoir, watch out.
Wait, what do you not recommend? Rock bottom basement or writing a memoir?
Both.
Yeah.
It's healing. It's rewarding. But it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I have had to face every single demon that has tried to destroy me.
Yep.
That candle is burning much brighter now.
Yeah.
And the stronger I get, the brighter it gets.
I totally understand. Like that stuff that's buried under the surface, like the plant matter that makes up coal, you know, it's all buried underneath there. It's dark. It's hidden.
Yep.
When somehow we're able to drill down into that, it's fuel for some reason.
Yeah. It is. Using that as fuel to save yourself. Because I don't think we have the power to save someone else's life. I think we have the power to give them hope and remind them that they're worth living. And if we can reconnect them to this choice. Because I really can't do that for people. I can teach them, I can encourage them, I can root for them, but at the end of the day, they have to choose what they're going to do with their pain.
Yeah.
Which is a really hard part of being in mental health advocacy and having so much personal experience. I have to keep a really healthy boundary, you know, especially with the teens. The kids that were my age when it happened.
Yeah, because that's what you're doing now with Dancing with ED or Ed.
At nonprofit, I was like, hey, I'm going to start a nonprofit, because I had found a piece of the puzzle, which was I never grieved my loss of dance. There was that piece of the puzzle. I never really grieved it. And I had kept all of my dance stuff in a box. It was stored in this box. And my therapist, the same therapist that I said I was dancing with Ed, she said, you know what you need to do? You need to go and open that box and grieve the loss of dance. Nobody had ever been so straightforward and said, like, you need to do this. And I was so desperate. I mean, I was so suicidal, and I was so desperate for something to keep me alive, because I really didn't want to die. I'm like, I'll do it. Totally. I went home. I got classical music was actually a trigger for me for many years. Because it's the ballet, so I would never listen to classical. So I got my phone out and I put on classical music, because I'm like, we're going in. I'm like, I want
immersion.
Just every sad song,
Immersion, yeah.
And I opened that box, and the smell was actually pretty interesting, because it was all dance clothes.
Interesting.
Such a healing moment.
Yeah.
I really embraced that dancer and held her. We shared one breath. And then I released her. I told her she was good enough. It wasn't her fault. And she can be at peace. What I didn't know at the time was there was also a little girl.
Yeah.
Hiding and in pain, but I didn't know about her yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did finally discover her a couple years ago when I started writing the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the dancer needed, that person really needed to be set free.
Yeah.
That's what that time did for me. That's what that time in recovery and in counseling between 2001 and 2000 but never giving up.
I remember in my own I'll say attachment therapy journey, learning secure attachment. many years. Yeah, still learning. But I'm reading some of the research by, I'm blanking on the author's name, but the research was about the power of immersion, I'll say, of a past traumatic event, and you basically write it out, but you're doing it in such a way where you're re-experiencing it, but you're writing it out so you're safe in the moment, and you're connected to all the different senses, and like you're imagining how you were as a kid and how that kid would have felt, and you write the story of how the kid felt and literally like how they reacted and the sights and sounds, and really connected to the memory of it in an embodied way. And for some reason, this whole act of like bringing it up into your consciousness and re-experiencing it shifts that inner narrative somehow, and it helps make sense of the past. And it's such an important thing, especially if you're stuck. And he didn't talk as much about ritualizing it, like grieving it, but I think that's equally, or at least super important. Just having that physical thing that you can touch. And I don't know, like I remember,
it was really healing when I had
the
clothes. So there were leotards, tights, my favorite t-shirt that I wore when I was warming up, some of my shoes. Actually, the last pair of shoes I ever wore on stage were in there. And there was this piece, like a warm up, and it's made of wool. And I remember touching and feeling the wool and smelling it, and all of them, so many of those good, happy memories came back. The joy came back. How much I loved. I mean, I was weeping. I was weeping and laughing and just sort of, I probably looked like, are you okay? But I'm like, I would be like, no, I'm fine. I'm healing. Get away. You gotta do this, right? So, I mean, just like snot and amazing experience. So healing.
Yeah.
And I needed that. I needed to grieve that.
Yeah.
She deserved that, you know? She had been in so much pain, and she held on for so long. And you know what? She did the best she could.
She could, yeah.
What she had, you know, I think all of us sort of have these different selves inside us. You know, we have our child, we have our adolescent, you know, and we carry these parts of ourselves with us, and they really have an impact on who we are. So she needed that healing, and that layer was placed in another space.
This separate, the separate selves that are shining light onto them. And
I couldn't, until I let her go and give her peace, I couldn't get to the child.
It was like peeling an onion or whatever. Yeah. And
also my brain wouldn't let me. The brain is fascinating. When it comes to trauma, your brain can actually like take the memory and go, no, you're not going to remember this. This is too much. This is too many pieces. I'm going to break it all up and store it in different places. So here are some sounds, and here's some this and that. And we're just not going to do this.
Yeah. And
that's trauma work.
Yeah. Piecing it together and integrating it. Yeah. It's
back together again and getting that full picture of who was I at the time? What happened to her, and how can I heal her?
Yeah. And somehow that enables healing. It's you get these intense emotional experiences, and somehow, like for me, the mystery is like somehow this release just opens you up. It's like 6 months or 3 months later, you're like, wow, like I'm like shifted significantly in 3 months. Like you don't really notice it in the moment. Like you feel great in that moment, or you're overwhelmed and nothing really changes. But then like a few months later, it's like, oh, like I don't know, I'm different. Like it's weird how uncovering this stuff leads to real change down the line. Uh, Something that I even don't quite fully understand myself. I just kind of can trust the process that, if you integrate and can stay safe in an overwhelming experience, then then later on, like you're just more put together later on.
And you can, it's kind of accepting that some of it you just don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
And allowing it to be like,
Yeah.
how did that happen? It happens. And I agree. Months later, I started doing this deep work with, that little girl. And it's only been, I've been working with her for about a year and a half. And it's like, to see what she went through, I'm like, well, no wonder you were sick for so long. No wonder, and I think spiritually, on a spiritual level, my entire journey has made me strong enough to get her out.
Yeah.
Like in a lot of ways, I wouldn't have had the strength to help her. I would not have had the strength to face it.
Mm-hmm.
I really needed to go through those other processes first before I could go back to the very beginning.
Interesting.
And you have to trust that process. You can't just jump right in.
Yeah.
It's okay to take your time and not understand where you're at and not even understand what's going to happen with it because it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Like just imagine, just like, we're going on an adventure. Where are you going? I don't know.
Yeah.
A backpack with some hope in it.
Yeah.
Got a couple friends in there and a can of tuna. I don't know.
I'm certainly your questions about the past are very thought provoking for me too. I'm wondering what else I got to explore and what you know what I mean? I'm like thinking about myself right now. Like, okay, I wonder. No, but I love it. I think what I really relate to as well is that there is this unknown, but you just become more comfortable with the unknown. And I think, right, there's always going to be unknowns, and it's really trusting the emotional ambiguity of the unknown and taking it moment by moment, staying connected, even though you're not quite sure about what's going to happen or what to do or how to handle it. And
and the beauty in that, and knowing that you're going to discover a new land, which is you.
Yeah.
You're going to just, if you allow yourself to be on the journey, you will discover something extraordinary.
That
you have to be willing to sail without a map.
So as we kind of wrap up today, that leads very nicely into I call it an eating enlightenment. It's like a moment of insight, like, oh my God, or these discoveries that you make that shift how you see reality. It's like, oh, I used to see reality this way, and now it's like, holy crap, which is a discovery. What if you had to summarize? Cliff Notes version, just like someone who is gonna listen to this and they'll just hear a little snippet. Anyways, what are your 3 enlightenments, or even just 1 or 2? Just what's something short and sweet that has really changed your perception of your body and relationship with food?
I would say the first one would be, I am not my body. And because I'm not my body, I don't need to, that's not my identity. So I am not judged. I don't self-judge for what I weigh or what I look like. My body isn't who I am. Before that acceptance and that realization, I was trapped within societal, approval. I was a professional dieter, like professional. I was so good. I did every single diet. And every single diet fails because that's what diets do.
Yeah.
So really accepting that I'm not my body. It's not who I am. And I don't have to find identity in the way I look. That was like the first step, number one. I think 2 is that food and feelings don't really go together very well. So food is not just, feeling, and feeling is not food. Just separating those and understanding that I eat in response to hunger and I'm fueling a physical body. And that's it. It's not, I'm sad, I need to eat a cake. Or I'm angry, so I'm not going to eat anything. I'll show you anger.
Yeah, or the opposite.
Or the opposite, right? Because it was very much feel my feelings, eat, to feel. And then to release my feelings, it was to get rid of it. I didn't realize for a long time that fat was not a feeling. When my therapist said, how are you feeling? I said, I feel fat. She's like, that's not a feeling.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh my God, the entire life's been a lie. What are you feeling? How much time do you have? Right? So food and feelings, that's changed my perspective on food and eating. It led to intuitive eating, which is where freedom is, to just respond to what your body needs. And I feel like when you start to respond to what your body needs with fuel, you will start to find that you respond to your body's need for connection, need for love, need for affection.
Yeah.
And maybe the last food thing is that it's okay to eat. It's normal to want to have a celebration and go out and eat spaghetti at your favorite Italian restaurant because it tastes good, right? You know what I do? I like the bread in the oil and I eat it because it's good. And there's no guilt there because I didn't do anything wrong. I don't have a rule that says, oh my gosh, if you do this and this and this, then this is going to happen and you're going to have to compensate. And it's like, whatever. I like spaghetti, and that's okay. And I can eat a couple cookies off the plate and they'll be there tomorrow. I don't, so that permission to just be okay with just enjoying life, and food is a part of life. Food is a part of connecting socially. And when we start to restrict that part of life, we restrict so many other things. Like when you sit down and you break bread with your friends, you've got food on the table and you're eating together and you're just connecting together. But I isolated myself because I was afraid of food. So I didn't want to go anywhere because food was everywhere. It set me free. And food just became food. Spaghetti is spaghetti.
Yeah.
I love it. It's awesome.
I love spaghetti.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm really risque, and mine isn't even whole grain. If I want it to be, then I can. But I like the taste of regular spaghetti. I'm not like. But
yes.
You take care of yourself if you eat regular spaghetti.
Oh man.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? I am way healthier now than I eat regular spaghetti.
Yeah, I know. Like that health advice can be so one-sided and totally disregard the body. And it's like,
because you know what? Once I eat the spaghetti, I'm so satisfied. I don't even think about it for another couple of months.
Yeah.
If I hadn't eaten the spaghetti, man, I would be like, oh God, I want to.
Yeah. Like then you'd be snacking on like whatever and thinking about spaghetti. All right, I'm not gonna have spaghetti, but eat this instead. And well, wow, I ate way too much of that, but I still want spaghetti. And
do they have spaghetti flavored Pringles? Do they have spaghetti flavored pretzels? Because I'm not allowed to eat spaghetti.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you'd be thinking about, you'd be asking that question. Are there spaghetti flavored pretzels? Or no, Pringles, whatever, same thing.
They have every other flavor. They have like pizza.
How many flavors do they have? They got a lot.
Pizza. They have nachos.
Yeah.
They don't have beer yet.
Yeah. What are you up to in your career now? Where can people contact you?
Yeah. Okay. So I am up to a couple of things. Up to no good. I'm still working with the local mental health community here in San Luis Obispo. So I'm really passionate about getting into classrooms, middle schools, high schools, teaching them about mental health. I usually go into freshman health classes, which is a really great space because all the kids have to take health. So we're trying to figure out what class does everybody have to take. So going in the classrooms, extremely rewarding, really exhausting by the end of the day. But it actually fuels me. I really get along with teenagers, probably because there's a part of me that still is one. And people are like, you like that? I'm like, yeah. So I'm doing that, and it brings me joy. And I also do speaking at community forums. So, different nonprofits or businesses that want to have a mental health speaker come in. I do a lot at Cal Poly. I speak at their clubs, their trainings, do a lot of eating disorder education, just simple stuff because I'm not a licensed therapist. Just those realizations that I've learned. And then I have my nonprofit, Dancing with Ed. Dancing with Ed is not just provide services in San Luis. Our goal is to have online trainings, workshops, all dance community members, whether you live in Canada or if you live in Texas, can access eating disorder education. We do outreach. So like just yesterday, I was at a local youth arts foundation, parent orientation with a resource table. And I had, mental health resource connection cards. I had, catalogs, and people are like, wow, this is, thank you. This is so cool. And then we're having a dance show, our first big event. We're doing a dance show in Oakland next month.
No way.
October 20th.
No way.
And yeah, it's going to be super cool. What it is it's a collection of submitted choreography from dancers who have experienced either an eating disorder or body image struggles, or they have a really good friend and they want to dance their journey. Addiction. If somebody who's has experience with that and they want to do a piece. So this is called Stages of Change, a dancer's body journey.
Wow.
And giving them that space to speak their language of dance and their stories, personal stories. We're having a resource fair afterwards to get, really get the dance community and the recovery community in the same space.
Yeah.
We'll have some refreshments and I'll be performing at the show.
Oh my God.
I will be performing for the first time since my professional career. I am able to do movement, not like I did.
Oh my God.
But I will be performing.
Oh my God.
And it's going to be really healing for me because that dancer's going to dance.
Oh man. I'm touched.
Yeah. So
I'm touched.
Super excited.
That's going to be another, whatever you call it, gateway, or, when you pass, I don't know, identity, like a mile marker, whatever you want to call it, or, just like that's part of I hear that you're so much on your path right now. Like you're so much on your path, like, and the passion is like connected. It's flowing out from you. Like you are going to be such a impact.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know that
And you're just getting started too. I mean, you're not just getting started, but you have so much more like to give and to go, and you're just so on point. Like, great. Yeah, awesome. I love it.
I love that. Well, going back to that analogy really quick about the candle, and that little flame, it's like a huge fire now.
Yeah.
It is blazing a trail for so many people. And I encourage people, when you're in that place where your candle is almost completely out, just remember that there is hope. It can come back. And that it's possible. Just look at my life. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't possible.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming on.
That was my pleasure.